After discovering my wife's double life, I stood on the brink of collapse. But this is not the end of the story, but the beginning of my revenge. Welcome to the Love and Betrayed Love channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Last spring, I was 42 years old and in male court. My wife Lisa, 39, a female, is having an affair. She was exposed by a family friend who witnessed them together. We attempted counseling for the sake of our children, but she cheated again and came out as a lesbian. This was with another woman. Then she was caught for the first time and she ended up living with her Rebecca partner. After 17 years together, I was taken aback and heartbroken. She had never hinted at her sexual orientation or attraction to women. Our 2 children took it hard. The 13-year-old boy was bewildered and wept a lot. Our 15-year-old daughter, on the other hand, was enraged and refused to interact with her mother. Both pleaded to stay with me and we divorced, with me keeping the house, and in exchange I did not seek child support from her. When the divorce was finalized, she asked the kids to spend the weekend with her at her fair partner's house. The daughter refused to leave. My son called many hours after he departed and asked me to come collect him. At one point we were all in treatment. My son is still seeing his therapist. After 9 months he is improving, but he still suffers from depression on occasion. My kid left treatment after 2 months and refuses to return because she believes the therapist favors her mother. She blames her mother for wrecking her life and dissolving our family. She still refuses to visit or speak with my ex during Christmas, but she did want to see the kids and try to rebuild wounds. She brought multiple gifts for each of them. Our daughter locked herself in a room till we left and tried to communicate with her through the door, but she would not respond. Our son was a bit more open. He opened the gifts and thanked her. She attempted to speak with him and explain things, but he began crying. She prepared to depart and attempted to speak with our daughter again, but was unsuccessful, and as she departed, she attempted to hug our son, but he refused. She began to cry as she left. I contacted the next day to apologize. I had informed her that she would most likely not be warmly welcomed by the children. I promised her I'd take the kids to her folks for Christmas tomorrow. I attempted to involve their grandparents in their life whenever feasible. My son's birthday in February passed without a word being spoken. Man and father did call out saying he had been drinking heavily and was becoming concerned by April. She had lost her job and her relationship had ended. I suspect she'll end up staying with her parents before long. If that happens, the kids will probably not want to stay with their grandparents while she is there. I sincerely hope she receives help soon. I saw her at the shop and she looks like she's gained 20 to 30 pounds and looks dreadful. The traditional midlife crisis double whammy caught in an affair. She discovers she's a lesbian, moves in with her new partner, and then the universe decides to throw in a bonus round of job loss and personal appearance makeover. She really went for the complete makeover, didn't she? Meanwhile, you are the MVP dad, keeping everything together, managing therapy sessions, birthdays and potential embarrassing family reunions, with the skill of a diplomat. If there were a medal for dealing with a roller coaster divorce, you'd be on the podium. Do you think Opie went too easy on her? Please let us know in the comments below. Next, when life delivers you a cheater, you don't want to stay too long at the departure gate. My wife is moving out today. I've been posting for 1 month. My wife of over 15 years has been having an affair for the past 9 months. We have 2 amazing preteen children. The previous 4 weeks have been a roller coaster of emotions and pain. As the shock of this unexpected revelation wears off, I'm thinking about what comes next. I'm reflecting on what's been said. Am I exhibiting panicked behavior over the first 3 weeks? I felt some relief when she divulged the identity of her Rebecca partner, as well as the fact that she is in love. It appears to be something I can comprehend and embrace. Today I am terrified because the woman I promised my life to admits she has never been attracted to me, is dealing with a lifetime of trauma and emotional abuse from others. She must depart to find herself. I started with shock, offering forgiveness. Love-related feelings. We shared assurances that we could be the best friends, co-parents, and desperately wanted to read any content that would indicate a way to reconciliation. I believed that a reconciliation could and would result in a new relationship that transcended our previous troubles. I believed that my devotion, love and forgiveness could help to restore this relationship. We have gone through all of the regular phases. It's entirely her fault. It's entirely my fault. It is our fault. We did our best. We love each other. We're best pals. This will never work. Do not close doors for the future. Who knows what might happen? I am a failure. I am disgusting. She's disgusting, all of it. She's leaving today, maybe forever, and I was mistaken. It is comforting to find apathy at this moment. The cathartic and recent consumption of chump lady content, while occasionally unpleasant, appears to have helped me acquire some kind of indifference, and it is quite soothing. I am a prize. I am not ugly. She's losing. I may be on the verge of achieving the life I deserve. Journaling helps. Having individuals to chat to is beneficial. Keeping your secrets is unnecessary. As long as I am certain that I can filter the material that will eventually be revealed to my children. They don't deserve any of this. Today could be a difficult day. I'm trying to filter out the worry and dread of what the future holds and simply hold on to the man. I want my children to understand that this is all right for them, that they will stay with mom a couple of evenings a week, that they will be home for school and sports, and that their lives will continue to be normal. I'm looking for legal counsel. I believe I will get divorced in the near future. I wish he would just find a job first. I don't want to support her anymore. While each day discloses a little more about my ability to achieve this, I am no longer a chump. I'm afraid I am terrified of the pain. I'm terrified for my children. I'm afraid about my future, but for the first time in a month, I'm not concerned about my wife's recovery process. I'm far less concerned about her path now that I'm no longer accountable for it and never was. I'm not sure what I'm looking for here, but I've been reading these stories and thought I'd attempt my own. Any advice you can offer would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for reading my story. Ask for guidance and the community will never disappoint, first and foremost because she is unemployed. You may be obligated to pay child support and alimony. You'd better gather every piece of evidence that you can have the affair. The op responds. I know who he is. I have a picture of them together at work. I don't know what else I can do at the moment. I have no written admissions. She wishes for an amicable and conflict-free separation. I know I have to be prepared. Maybe a lawyer will give me actionable advice. Someone else joins in. Many chumps were able to obtain a fair settlement while their cheats were in the fog. I'll probably craft an offer with just enough transitional alimony to get her to sign. However, it is not enough to keep you paying for the rest of your life. She has a tendency to be dumb, but reality strikes quickly. You have a tiny window of opportunity, so take use of it. There's a possibility it won't work, but it's worth trying. I regret not doing this, and my divorce took 3 years, 11 court dates, 2 attorneys and a total cost of $11,000. I approach things differently now that I know what I know. I'm pleased with the outcome, but I made it more difficult than it needed to be. Seeing an attorney should be the main priority right now. Do that, and you may thank us after. I also got dumped for a coworker, so I've been where you are for 28 years and left in an afternoon. The delights of post-drama, where the silver lining is discovering you no longer have to pretend to enjoy her aunt's meatloaf during family gatherings. Remember, as you negotiate this new terrain, keep your chin up and your big declarations close, and hey, when life throws you lemons, make sure your lawyer gets you a fair deal before the lemonade stands open. Here's hope. Your ex's path of self-discovery leads her directly to a 9-to-5 job update. 2 months after D-Day, the road moves forward. Short catch-up. Wife of 14 years engaged in a month-long physical Rebecca that persisted after D-Day. D-Day occurred 2 months ago. We have children. She moved out. Coos counseling is over. Individual counseling continues. Life is odd. We're in contact. However, for the sake of the children, most conversations should be brief. She remains friendly but not friends, and her perception of our relationship fluctuates dramatically. Her relationship with the partner. My role as a husband, etc. Since discontinuing COOPS counseling, I intend to provide less opportunity for conversations like this to continue. Update. Good news. I finally got an attorney. My wife ended their Rebecca and the other betrayed spouse is aware. At first I didn't care about the breakup. I have a lawyer. Now I can proceed with the divorce. Now she has doubts and is going too quickly because she hasn't had time to digest what transpired. Is this truly what I want? My wife's mental health is improving, which is making me reconsider my course of action. I began to consider the possibility that her mental state was an acceptable explanation for her Rebecca. I began to wonder whether she had more time, and we tried to bring me back to mind. I know it's not true. I understand that I cannot trust her as a partner. Even if I accept what she did. I do not want it to become part of my future tale. I don't believe this is healthy for any future relationships. I believe there is no such thing as reconciliation in situations like hers. I believe people choose to lie to themselves because it seems more comfortable. She is making progress by obtaining a job and a better place to begin. 50 THS parenting. This helps me both monetarily and emotionally. Now I'm faced with more alone time and wondering if my concerns are simply about seeing my children less, even though I believe that learning to be alone and having the freedom to do what I want is probably best for me. I will continue with individual counseling. It's nice to have an outlet. I've opened up to my own family, who have been quite supportive. Overall, I believe I am doing okay. All things considered, it's been a little over 2 months since D-Day, and while I'm not thriving, I'm doing more than just surviving. My blood pressure has dropped since I stopped going to couples counseling and hired a lawyer. I'm sleeping better and feel less anxious. Now maybe I want to clear my head so that I can begin making more solid divorce plans. The community answers in kind. First and foremost, I know I cannot trust her as a spouse. Even if I accept what she did, I do not want it to become part of my future tale. This is your logical brain talking to you. Listen to it. Do not make excuses for her behavior. Mental health difficulties are serious, but they do not justify having an affair. You don't mention her efforts to reconnect with you or her genuine contrition. My guess is that she has already decided to leave the marriage. Continue with the divorce process. Hope. Plan for your future. Without her, except for the children, you will survive. Your children will perceive you as the steady parent and will appreciate and respect you for it. Take care of yourself. The next individual says move on. Yes, she will never be a safe relationship for you. Individual counseling should be provided with a focus on creating a positive co-parenting relationship. She'll hold hard on the divorce. Staying will not yield any positive results. Congratulations on finding an attorney. It's like finding a golden ticket to the divorce factory. Now that you've taken care of the legalities, you may relax and allow uncertainties to stream in, like an unexpected rainy season in your emotional desert. Remember, wondering if you're going too quickly is like wondering if you should stop for gas after your engine has already coughed up smoke. It's probably a good choice and don't believe the mental state reason for her Rebecca last I checked. Therapy rarely takes the shape of a fling with another person. Continue the individual counseling sessions. It's like paying a therapist to remind you why you'd be better off without her. Stay strong and single, and let's hope that the only crazy oscillations you have in the future are related to your financial portfolio rather than your ex's emotional baggage. Here is the next story. The signs were ready and waiting at the front door. I had spent the better part of the last few days working on them because I wanted them to be flawless. Now comes the difficult part: up the stairs to the master bedroom. Remove the bedclothes, ruffle the mattress from the queen-sized bed in half. Carry the slider down the steps through the hall and out onto the front yard near the street back inside the house. Climb the stairs, toss the slats and bedclothes down the stairs, then take them outside and dump them next to the mattress. Another trip into the bedroom. Take apart the side rails and hustle them outside. Check my watch for 22. I need to hurry. I need to finish by 5. The headboard and footboard followed, and by 4:35 the bed was back together next the kitchen table. It was lightweight enough that I could scoot and carry it. I turned it sideways and angled it through the door, placing it close to the yard bed. The final piece was the 6x8 throw rug in the living room. I wrapped it up and put it among the other stuff in the yard, updated the signage and proudly indicated that it was only for 55. Only 10 minutes. Until my wife arrives home, I walk to the center of the street and turn to admire my job. It has a stunning appearance. It almost brought tears to my eyes. My wife is in my marital bed, kitchen table and throw rug, the 3 sites I was certain my wife and her lover had frequented during the previous 6 months, and the signage were excellent, high enough to be out of reach one by one. I read the enormous placard in front of the furniture. These stuff are yours to take free. They are no longer welcome in this home. If you could stand the odor of adultery and unfulfilled promises, help yourself. The sign over the bed reads, on this bed. My wife has frequently broken her wedding vows and sabotaged our marriage by having sex with her boyfriend twice a week for the past 6 months. This afternoon was their most recent tryst, and the scent of their bodies still lingers on the blankets. The notice above the kitchen table stated that my wife and her lover frequently had intercourse on his table, usually just a few hours before she served me dinner. The sign over the throw rug read, my wife and her lover seem to prefer this rug for their fun. To each sign, I'd attached a 17.24 inches photograph of the adulterous couple consummating their union to the right piece of furniture. A 5th sign was placed slightly behind the table reading, my wife's lovers are Boss Greg Allen of Mitchell Price and Allen Reilly. He's married with 3 children. I doubt his wife is aware of any of this, but she will shortly. She'd be home any minute at 4:57, right on time. I turned back and noticed a bunch of neighbors gathered to watch what I was doing. Several cars had stopped and more than one person was on their cell phone, either phoning their friends to come take a look or calling the cops to have me arrested for promoting public obscenity. I strolled into the house and closed the door behind me, excited to be part of a sibling group. At exactly 5:50 p.m., I noticed my wife's car take the bend at the end of the street and instantly slowed down, seeing everyone gathered outside our house, pointing at something on our wagon and talking and laughing among themselves. She drove slowly to the house we'd shared for the previous 10 years and paused in front, peering at the side of the furnishings and the signs in her front yard, paying special attention, I'm sure, to the large photos of her and her boss, Greg Allen, having sex, their faces, masks of lust and pleasure. Even through her car window in the window of my house, and despite the conversation of the 40 or 50 people standing around gawking, I still heard her scream. No, oh God, no. Finally, her gaze shifted from the signs to the front window of the house, where she noticed me standing. We were staring at each other. She appeared distraught. Her face ash and white. I could see tears running down her cheeks. She appeared to be questioning why I had the same question for her. I studied her for a few seconds before turning away and closing the drapes behind me. I suppose at this time I should explain how my wife, Sherry, and I landed at this awful situation. My name is Jack Meyer. I met Sherry in college during our junior year. A mutual acquaintance suggested we get together, and when we first met I was smitten. Sherry was not a beautiful woman in the traditional sense, but she was really charming and sensual. She stands 5'2" in tall, with lovely blue eyes and dishwater, blonde hair that reaches her shoulders. Her figure was little but wonderfully shaped, and her tiny waist drew me in, though she didn't realize it at the time. She convinced me that I would lose, which never occurred to me. Sherry and I began dating and got engaged within a few weeks. We made love for the first time a month after meeting, and it was unlike anything I'd ever felt before. I became captivated with Sherry and couldn't get enough of her body. We weren't virgins the first time around, but we were far from experienced and we enjoyed each other's bodies. Oral sex was fantastic and everything we did seemed to become a favorite. I think it's reasonable to say we were as deeply in love as two people can be. We married shortly after college and moved into our first house, a condo in Van en Shia, obtained her real estate license and started to work for one of the area's most recognized companies. I used my engineering degree to land a good job with an electronic manufacturing business, and we settled into a life that I thought was ideal for the following 13 years. We had a wonderful life together, first in our apartment, and then, when our income improved, we purchased our ideal home and started our family. Shelby, who is now 8 years old, arrived first. Ryan arrived 2 years later at the age of 6. Sherry and I are utterly smitten with those two children. Our family lives for one another. So what happened? I wish I could tell you. I wish I could claim I recognized the subtle indicators that anything was wrong, but I didn't. I was completely oblivious. I live in a world of total love and trust with my wife. It took a fluke to let me know what was going on, a fluke caused by our daughter Shelby becoming ill at school. It was Thursday, and I received a call from the school nurse shortly before noon informing me that Shelby had contracted what appeared to be the flu. I was in the middle of a staff meeting when I requested that the school nurse call my wife. The nurse told me she tried phoning Sherry in her office, but was told my wife would be out for the remainder of the day. She tried our residence, but there was no answer, so she left a message for herself, only to be forwarded to voicemail. She called me, since it was critical that my daughter be picked up as soon as possible. I apologized to my colleagues and drove as quickly as I could to Shelby School, where I picked her up and returned home. When we arrived and I opened the garage door, I was surprised to find a car I didn't recognize parked next to my wife's. I instantly felt a knot in my throat and my stomach began to churn. No, it cannot be. I told myself that my wife, whom I loved more than life itself, couldn't be having an affair. It was not doable, but nonetheless, why was there a weird car in the garage with the door down? Something was extremely wrong and I had to figure it out, and I couldn't have my daughter find out with me. I instructed Shelby to stay in the car for a minute, but why? I want to go to bed. She wailed. I understand, sweetie, but I believe the exterminator has arrived. Spraying the house for bugs can only make you sicker. I lied to her. It was the first lie I had ever told my kid. Let me check first and then I'll come to collect you. Daddy. What's wrong? Nothing, Shelby. I am fine. Just the stink in the house bothered me, got to me. I am fine, don't worry, I'm okay. I left Shelby with her grandmother and told her I'd pick her up in a few hours. I didn't tell my mother anything about what I had witnessed. I just told her to watch Shelby. Till I came back from work, I was tempted to drive back to my house and confront the adulterous couple, but I realized I needed more than that. I needed vengeance. As I drove back to my workplace, I began to devise strategies to permanently damage my wife and her boss. The electronics company I worked with has multiple divisions. I was a senior engineer in the medical equipment division, which shared a big facility with a division that designed and manufactured commercial security systems. When I arrived at my office, I instructed my secretary to ensure that I was not interrupted for the rest of the afternoon, then picked up the phone and contacted my counterpart in the security division. Dan Taylor was an amazing engineer who had been a close friend since college. I told him I wanted to see him right away, and he said he was on his way anyhow, dropping off some plans to be replicated, and would see me in half an hour. I instructed my secretary that Dan could come into my office as soon as he came, and he did, knocking on my door 20 minutes following our phone discussion. "What's cooking, Jack?" he asked, entering and closing the door. "You appear to have just lost your final friend." "I believe I have, Dan, and I need your aid." "Anything." "Jack, what's going on?" "I just found my wife and her employer having sex in my home in my bed." "Damn, Jack, you are kidding." "I wished I was. I had to pick up my daughter from school. When I went home, I found a weird automobile in my garage. I sneaked into her room and discovered them on her bed. I couldn't believe it, but it was real. This should not happen to anyone." "What occurred when you challenged them?" "I did not challenge them. I wanted to, but my daughter was unwell and I didn't want to risk her seeing them, so I had her wait in the car for me. After I spotted them together, I silently left and drove Shelby to my mother's place. What are you planning to do? I'm not sure, but I know I need proof. I want audio and footage of him the next time they do it, and that is where you come in. You need security cameras and microphones, something little I can conceal in many rooms of the house and videotape everything that happens. I believe I can help you with that, Jack, but how do you know there will be a next time? Perhaps this was a one-time incident in which things spiraled out of control. There's no chance. They then discussed how they had been doing it on a regular basis for the past 6 months. I'm not sure if they always come to my house, but I'll bet they do. Hotels create paper trails that neither of them can afford, and her boss's wife stays at home, so when I'm at work and the kids are in school, I only have access to my house. We talked for a few more minutes before we got down to business. Dan stated that he had access to a new beta line of wireless small cameras and microphones that would be compatible with my laptop or home computer. He also had a little voice-activated recorder that I could place under Sherry's car seat to record any conversations she might have while driving. It would only catch one aspect of the discourse, but it was better than nothing. I thanked him and told him I'd pick up everything from his office the next day. Going home. That night was the most difficult thing I'd ever done. I wasn't sure if I could face my wife and act like nothing occurred. I felt the best thing I could do was make him believe I wasn't feeling well, which was true. I picked Shelby up from my mother's house, and when I arrived home, Shia was preparing supper in the kitchen. When she noticed I had Shelby with me, she became agitated. "Where have you been and why didn't you call to inform me that Shelby was sick?" "I just got the school nurse's message on the answering machine. The school attempted to contact you as Sherry, but for some reason you were available. They called your workplace and were told you were not present. They then dialed the house phone and left a message. They even called your cell phone, but it went to voicemail. Oh God, I must have mistakenly turned it off while viewing houses. I didn't get a minute to myself all day. Yes, I am certain of it. You're too busy having sex with your boss to bother about your daughter." Sherry hugged Shelby and apologized, then assisted her to her bed. "My wife may be a nasty witch, but she adores her children. I appeared to be impeding her happiness." That was about to change, and Sherry quickly put her daughter to bed before returning to the kitchen to prepare soup for her and finish cooking dinner for the rest of us. I told her I wasn't feeling good either. "I believe I will sleep in the guest room tonight, just in case I'm contagious." Sherry felt my forehead. "You feel a touch clammy, honey, and you appear pallid." "Yeah, I expected pallid and clammy. This is what happens when you discover your wife having sex with another man in your bed." I did not respond to her, simply turn and climb the stairs. I went first to the master suite. I loathed going in there, but I needed my shaving supplies, toothbrush and clothes for work the next day. So I forcibly entered the room. A window was opened, the sex scent was gone, and the bed had been made. She must have changed the bedding. It was unbearable to look at. All I could see in my mind was her employer having sex with her while she told him how good it was and how she belonged to him and him alone forever in the rooms within me like a wave, but I forced it down. I needed to be cool until I could bring the fires of hell down on both of their heads, which I will. This was a guarantee. I gathered the necessary materials and went to the guest bedroom, closing the door behind me. I stripped down to my skivvies before climbing into bed. My body felt wooden. I wanted to cry, but I suppressed it. I had a mission to achieve and couldn't let my emotions get in the way. For hours I lay in the darkness, unable to fall asleep. My wife entered the room after she had fed and put the children to bed. I pretended to sleep. She caressed my forehead with the palm of her hand before leaving the room, closing the door behind her. Sherry always brought the kids to school, so I got up early, showered and left the home before she woke up. I'm sure it seemed unusual to her, but I'd simply explained that I needed to make up for the missed hours. Yesterday I was feeling ill. I honestly didn't care what she thought. At this point I just wanted out. Up until yesterday I felt I had a lovely marriage based on everlasting loyalty, honesty and devotion. How dreadfully mistaken I was. I got to work before any of the office employees arrived. I made a pot of coffee and began making plans. I knew I needed to cancel our joint credit cards and transfer half of our joint checking and savings accounts to another bank. In my name only. I would modify my will, life insurance and 401 essential beneficiaries. Removing Sherry, leaving only Shelby and Ryan, it appears like dissolving the last 13 years of my life will need very little effort. It should be difficult deep within. I expected it to happen eventually. I also realized I needed to get a decent divorce lawyer to keep Sherry from raking me over the coals, since this was a no-fault divorce. State adultery would not be included in the financial settlement. It might, however, help me keep my children. Sherry had demonstrated how unimportant I am in her life, but she was a terrific mother and I did not want to remove her from her children. I only wanted joint custody so that I could continue to be a vital part of their lives. I tried hard not to think about our love life, and what do you mean? It was to hear my wife describe her partner as superior to me in every aspect. I knew. If I allowed myself to think about it right now, I'd begin to doubt myself, and I couldn't do it just yet. That I knew would happen later, and when it eventually hits me, it will most certainly destroy me. After I finished my list, I called Dean's office. He was there and assured me that he would have everything I needed by noon. He'd even come with me to help me set up everything and make sure I knew how to utilize it. I tried to concentrate on getting some paperwork off my desk. When my cell phone rang, I recognized Sherry and answered after 3 rings. Her speech always made me feel warm, but this time it was merely a prelude to blazing rage. "Hello, baby, how do you feel?" she inquired in her most loving tone. I'm still a little queasy to my stomach. I told her if only you knew how sick I was. I am worried about you. Honey, you left this morning before I could check on you. Yeah, I have a lot of things to take care of and not enough time, so I arrived early. Please, Jack, take care of yourself. I'm not sure what I would do if something happened to you. Shelby and Ryan are my entire life. I said to myself, you have a strange way of expressing that. However, what I told her was, yeah, I will be all right. I simply need to get it off my chest. So if you're up for it tonight, I can think of a great method to make things better for you. I thought of the witch, and to think I was so naively blind that I used to believe her wholeheartedly, but not anymore. She was about to get what she deserved, based only on my timing. Sure, let's see how I feel. Boy, you must not be feeling good if you are so uninterested in receiving what you know is yours, baby, not disinterested. Sherry, I just have a lot on my mind right now. See you. Tonight I'll be home by 600. If you need anything, honey, just phone me. I'm at the office all day today. That was exactly what I needed to hear. I called Ben. He claimed he had everything ready and asked me to meet him at the loading dock door. We loaded everything into Dan's van and had it installed and tested by 330. Thanks to the two of us working together, then I installed the software on my home office PC and created a secure folder to collect and save everything. Cameras and microphones picked up. We bugged the living room, kitchen, guest bedroom and, of course, the master suite, focusing on one room with 4 cameras. That would record almost everything that happened there. Finally, we planted a camera and microphone in the master bathroom in case the love couple wanted to wash together after their sex frolic. Everything was activated automatically by motion, with the cameras turning on the microphones. I was ready. That night was the toughest of my life. I couldn't bring myself to do the disease routine again. So after supper, when the kids were asleep, I dutifully followed my wife to our room, where I lay on my side, away from her, and fainted to sleep. Sherry appeared irritated, since we always called before bedtime. She snuggled up against my back and draped her arm around me. Is anything wrong, my love? She asked. No, Sherry, I informed her that you have always gratified me. I just wonder if I am man enough for you, Jack. Why would you say that? You know you've always been enough for me, man. My life would be over if something happened to you. I won't need anyone else as long as I have. You are my ideal lover guy, always has been, always will be, yeah. I guess it's simply difficult to believe sometimes. Jack, what's wrong with you? Nothing, Sherry. I said I'm just tired and closed my eyes to sleep. Later I heard Sherry crying softly. I didn't feel sorry for her, but I wondered if she cried out of shame for what she was doing or because she thought I was being harsh to her again. I got up before she did and used the chance to insert the voice recorder beneath the seat of her automobile. I also checked the video and sound from the installed equipment and was confident that everything we did the night before was captured clearly, even in the low-light settings of her bedroom. When Sherry awoke, she was a little irritated, informing me that I had said something the night before that hurt her feelings. Then she kissed my cheek and changed her mood to cheerful. I suppose it's because she has plans with her employer. That afternoon I poured her a cup of coffee and informed her that I would be trapped in my office all day. She informed me she had to spend the entire afternoon viewing numerous homes and was confident she would make a big sale, but she would be able to pick up Shelby and Ryan after school with a kiss on the cheek. I approached the garage door only to hear Sherry say, "Jack, you neglected to tell me that you love me. Honey, you understand how vital it is for me to hear you say that every morning before we begin our day." "Sorry, Sherry, I suppose by now you should understand how I feel about you. I simply have a lot on my mind." "Okay, I forgive you this time, but a female deserves to hear her boyfriend tell her he loves her. Do not forget, get that?" "I promise I won't." I walked out. Yeah, I will tell a girl how much I love her. If I ever meet another female I can trust enough to fall in love with. Sherry's information about seeing homes all afternoon led me to believe she would be spending time with the true love of her life. I hope this was the case. I was weary of playing games. I just wanted this disaster to be finished. However, I spent the morning working in my office. I kept looking at my watch. Finally, at midday, I informed my secretary that I would be gone for a few hours and put my plan into action. I checked out a corporate van and parked across the street from my house waiting to see what happened. It took almost 1:00 before I noticed Sherry's car approach the home, unlock the garage door and park in her normal location. When she stepped out of her car and entered the house without lowering the garage door, I assumed she was either going to depart immediately or was expecting someone. 10 minutes later I discovered that she was expecting someone in the identical car I had spotted earlier in the day. I summoned them all, drove up our driveway and into the garage, taking my position just as he had in my wife's body. I watched him get out of his car in the garage with the door closed. I had to give it to them. They had the audacity to meet at my place in my bed to conduct their Rebecca. It just confirmed to me that they both believed they would never be caught. Either that or they had both decided that it didn't matter if they were caught or not. They will soon realize how incorrect they were on both points. They had been apprehended and I knew they would both be quite concerned with this final confirmation of my wife's adultery, as well as the fact that I would soon have all of the photographic evidence I needed of their sordid Rebecca. For the first time in 13 years, I allowed myself to cry. I was confident that my devoted wife would never cheat on me, just as I would never cheat on her, and with the tears came the first wave of skepticism. Was he a much better lover? I noticed that he wasn't any bigger than me. Perhaps he was more attractive. Neither of us would win a stunt award. Why would you voluntarily risk breaking both your and his marriages? She had to realize there was no way. I was not going to tell his wife everything the two of them were doing. I desperately wanted to enter the house and confront them, but why? What would this accomplish? I would CCH them in the ACT, but I had already done so once, but they were unaware of it. Would I feel better if I beat the crap out of her lover? Yes, but I'd probably go to jail for it. To be honest, neither of them were worth it at this point. My sole concern was how all of this misery would affect my children and his children, as I was ready to destroy him just as he had devastated me. They must have finished by 2:30 because the garage door opened and her lover backed out and drove away. My wife repeated the process 15 minutes later, closing the garage door behind her. I knew she'd be home with the kids by 3:30, so I quickly parked in the garage and went to my home office. I didn't want to spend time going over all of the footage the cameras had captured. I only wanted to ensure that the proof I needed was safely stored on my hard disk. After 10 minutes I had seen enough. It wasn't exactly the same as the last time they were together, but it was certainly graphic. They had begun having intercourse at the kitchen table where I ate my meals. They chuckled about how many times they wondered if I'd ever realize I was eating in the same location where he had sex with her so many times. They then walked to our bedroom, but not before her lover offered doing it in my daughter's room to change things up. My wife had a fit and told him no way. It was bad enough that she let him rub her husband's face in it, but her children's rooms were always off limits. At the very least she appeared to have some principles, but not where I was concerned. They started in the bedroom. I noted that neither of them ever declared they loved each other, but my wife continued to tell her boss that he was the best lover she'd ever had. As a last act, I'm not sure why they moved to the throw rug beside the fireplace in the living room, where he did her again when they were finished. I thought it was weird that she didn't change the bedding, but I assumed she would do it when she got the kids home at 3:30. That gave her plenty of time to air out the room and wipe up the evidence. Because I rarely arrived home before 6, I was relieved to know that the proof I needed was safe on my hard drive. I turned off the system and left the house without bothering to check on the mess I thought was still on my marriage bed. I'd seen enough, and even though my heart had hardened against my wife, I felt horrible on the inside. The nausea was quickly replaced with a searing wrath and resentment. I guess I smirked, knowing what hell I was about to unleash on both of their cheating brains. I returned to work and told Jim everything I had observed. Like me, he couldn't understand how a wife who claimed to love Sherry could do. It was now completely evident what she was doing. Not only had she broken our holy promises to each other, but she had gone out of her way to humiliate me before her boyfriend, always telling him he was a better lover, more like a dude, the only one who could complete her. All of those thoughts plunged my soul into a deep pit of agony and sorrow. I knew I needed to get out so I could complete my mission of destroying both of them. I needed to find a reputable divorce lawyer, and Dan suggested that I contact the business. The company used to ask whether they could suggest somebody. I spoke with one of the firm's corporate lawyers, who provided me 3 names of divorce lawyers he knew who had a track record of successfully safeguarding husbands' rights. The first one I called was about to retire and was not accepting new clients, but the second one said he'd make time for me. The 3 were done with that. By the following afternoon, I resolved to cancel credit cards, change beneficiaries and move money around. The following morning when I arrived home that night, Sherry was in the kitchen preparing dinner as the children completed their homework in their rooms. She was wearing a yellow suit dress and looked stunning. For a moment I thought my heart would break all over again. She was smiling and seemed really happy. I assumed that was her typical poster afternoon. Joy, good mood. Hey, sweetie, how is my man? I hope you had a good day, like I did, she told me, which made my eyebrows lift in astonishment. My day was intriguing, not particularly good. However, I discovered numerous interesting topics that I was previously unaware of. Why was yours so good? I inquired, knowing full well why she was in such a happy mood. I made a sale. She remarked this is the first one for the week, but I believe there will be another on Thursday, when I see some more homes. I guess this was your lucky day. I told her with less than great excitement. Is there anything else unique about today? Have you met any intriguing or special people? I asked. She gave me a funny expression. No, honey, just the normal work to get through the day so I can get home and spend time with my family. You know where my heart is. I nodded my head. I also know where you and Sarah all were. I thought as I walked up to our bedroom to change clothes while I was changing. I saw the room's linens had been replaced. It turned out there was still water on the shower floor, which I mentioned to her. I returned to the kitchen. Did you have a shower this afternoon? She literally jumped at my comments and turned to me with a remorseful expression on her face. No, foolish, why should I do that? I'm not sure, but there is water on the shower floor and it never stays there longer than a couple hours. Oh, The drains are probably clogged up again. She said, maybe, but I only cleaned it out a few weeks ago. Perhaps someone is sneaking into the house to have a tryst with their beloved in the shower after a particularly satisfying session of sex. I said this time she froze for a few seconds. She didn't turn to face me. Instead, she remained facing the counter, head down pulling lettuce apart for a salad. My Jack, you must have a vivid imagination to come up with something like that. Yes, that is me, Mr. Imagination, or is it ESP? Sometimes I believe I can read people's minds. If you could read my mind, you'd know how much I adore you. She tried to laugh, but it sounded strained. I'll be in my office. Let me know when dinner is ready. I told her, and she turned slightly to look at me. She appeared worried. Dinner was relatively quiet, with little talk. Cherry was astonished when I stole her customary seat at the table and forced her to sit in my normal area where she had sex with her employer a few hours before. Jack, you always eat at that spot at the table. Why change now? It's just wonderful to have a change of scenery. For once I stated. Cherry gave me a weird look and didn't eat much. After she sat down, she moved food around on her plate during supper. The kids discussed their day, but Cherry and I mostly listened, making appropriate comments here and there. After everyone joined in to help clean the dishes, I went back to my office to concentrate on my project. I rendered footage from that day and selected good still screens to transform into photos. I saved them as a photo file so that I could create large copies on my Absentee 3000. Next, I carefully selected the language for the signage I'd make with the images. All that remained was for me to see my lawyer and begin the divorce proceedings, get my finances in order and wait until my wife and her lover come to my place. When I eventually went to bed that night, Cherry was already sleeping or appeared to be. I was confident that my actions that evening had given her something to ponder about. Not that it mattered, but nothing she could do or say would persuade me to divorce or cheat on my ass. And as a bonus, I believe I made her little nervous. Today was Tuesday, and she added that she expected to make another transaction on Thursday, which I understood to mean that she and her lover would be getting together on that day. That was also the day I destroyed them. The next morning, I got up early, showered and left before Cherry was up. I had a lot to do and I wanted to allow myself as much time as possible to complete it. My lawyer's appointment was not until 3 am, so I had plenty of time to handle everything financial. My first stop was an HR department where I changed the beneficiaries of my life insurance and 401k from Cherry to Shelby and Ryan. The woman who helped me gave me funny looks, but I didn't feel obligated to explain my behavior to her or anyone else. My next move was to cancel all of our shared credit cards and get a new one established in my name. Only then was it time to go to the bank, where I moved half of the money from her joint checking and savings accounts to another bank in my name. I knew I should do something about our house, but I was confident the courts would allow Cherry to stay with the kids, so I postponed any action until I could confer with my lawyer at 3. I met with my lawyer and found him to be a pleasant enough individual. He cautioned me that because we were in a no-fault state, she could obtain custody of Shelby and Ryan and I'd lose the house and half of everything else to my wife, even if I had evidence of her infidelity. I told him I wanted him to draft the petition and he told me I couldn't get away with stealing practically everything from her. I told him not to worry. I was confident I could persuade her to go along with whatever I wanted. He wasn't thrilled, but he gave in to my demand, saying you'd have everything ready to serve her Friday AM. I also had him create papers to sue her boss and the company of which he was a part owner for intentionally wrecking my marriage. Those papers were also scheduled to be ready by Friday morning. I was set when I arrived home that night. I was cool with Cherry. To be honest, I was tired of it all and simply wanted it to be finished, so I could get on with my life. I knew there would be a lot of suffering and sadness ahead, but there was no turning back. In some ways, I'd finally be sharing my agony and suffering with my soon-to-be ex-wife and her lover. After a nice supper with no talk, I went to my man cave to print the images of the lovers I was going to use and make the signs, doing everything without interruption. I also found time to write a letter to Greg Allen's wife, enclosing 4x5 reproductions of the large images I was using on the posters and informing her that I had plenty of video to supply in case she decided to divorce her husband, as if I were dumping my wife. Shortly after 11:00 p.m., I returned to our bedroom to ensure Sherry was asleep, then went to her car, got the voice-activated recorder from under her seat, rewound it and listened to what was on it. I was only hearing one side of the talks and there appeared to be several legitimate business calls, one of which appeared to be Greg's. I am in love with her. Thank you again for this afternoon. I agree, I always miss you after we've been together. Yes, oh my God, spending a week together will be wonderful. Yes, perhaps we can. Soon we'll be able to organize a real estate convention that we simply must attend. Will you give me enough to drive me crazy? Yes, baby, only you know, if I didn't have to give Jack sex every now and then to make him pleased, I'd be your only possession. Yes, baby, we're set for Thursday afternoon. I can't wait either. Goodbye, baby. I was shocked to discover that what she said didn't hurt as much as it had previously. Perhaps there was hope for me. Yet she had no idea how quickly she'd become exclusive property forever. Of course, knowing that I was only one day away from wrecking their sweet lives made me happy. Revenge, I was discovering, was a potent medication. I replaced the tape and returned the recorder to her seat, hoping that it would capture evidence of her betrayal. I scarcely slept the next day as her world came apart, not because I was heartbroken. I'd gone beyond that. No. I had difficulty sleeping, since I was anticipating all that would happen. The next day I climbed out of bed for the final time, leaving Sherry sleeping. I stood there staring down at the lady who had been my life's love, the mother of my children and the woman. I planned to spend the rest of my life with tears welled up in my eyes as I realized I had slept with her for the last time. Never again, when I make love to her, never again will we hug or discuss our future. We had no future. As I turned and walked away from her, I wondered if she was aware of the consequences of turning against me. She probably didn't know, but she'd soon find out. I showered and left the house, stopping for breakfast at a diner before making a quick stop at work to inform my secretary that I'd be away for the day. I called Dan and told him what was about to happen. He wished me luck. He warned me to be cautious and requested me to let him know how things went. I made a quick stop at my lawyer's to ensure that everything was in order for my wife and Greg Allen to serve the next day. After that, I called my wife and told her I was going to pick up the kids from school. My mother stated that since they have no school on Friday, she wants them for the long weekend. I stated that I'll stop by the house around 3:45 to pick up some things and deliver them immediately to Mom's. She thought that was fantastic and told me in her sexiest voice that it would allow us time to spend Saturday in bed. Sure, I told her, then hung up. I had reached the point where I couldn't bear to listen to her. I took my time and returned to my residence by 12:30. I parked around the block and waited for the action to begin. My automobile was mostly hidden from view, but I could see any car that entered my driveway. I didn't need to see the garage door move up and down. My wife and her lover behaved predictably, if nothing else. At 12:50, I noticed Sherry's car pull into the driveway, followed 5 minutes later by Greg Allen. The bait was taken, and I was prepared to reel them in. I should have been in anguish, knowing my wife and her boss were having sex in my marriage bed while I waited in the corner waiting for them to finish, but she'd lost the ability to harm me. I couldn't believe how surprised I was, as I imagined all the things they were doing together. It was almost like remembering a cheap pornographic film with minimal plot but a bang-up ending. At 10:03, I noticed Alan's car pull out of the driveway and go. 10 minutes later, Sherry followed suit, sweet as she drove away. I watched her reapply new lipstick as soon as the old ones were gone. I pulled into my garage and closed the door. I had stuff to accomplish and not much time to complete it. I went to my office and reviewed the videotape from that afternoon session. Everything was there: the insults, the pronouncements that he was far better at sex than I would ever be. There was a difference this time. However, this time I didn't care. After ensuring that the footage had been safely transferred into my hard drive, I spent the next 10 minutes carrying all of my handcrafted placards with images up the stairs and positioning them near the front entrance, where they would be useful. Next, I packed a toothbrush and some clothes for Shelby and Ryan and loaded them into my car. The only remorse I felt about what I was going to do was the grief it would inflict the two children I adored more than anything in the world. I took solace in knowing that I had not caused the agony they would soon experience when they discovered their mother and father were no longer together. No, that duty fell squarely on their mother's shoulders. She was the one who decided to have a long affair, which absolutely devastated her family. At 3:15 I drove to their school and was waiting for them. When the final bell rang, I told them they'd be spending the weekend with Grandma, who usually spoils you rotten. They were thrilled. 45 minutes later I had dropped them off and returned home where I put my plan into effect, and this puts us back to where we began: bed, table and rugs. I am the one with all the signs the neighbors were watching, and Sherry came home to the agony of discovering that I knew everything. I didn't hear from Sherry that night, though I expected to her. Cell phone rang late that evening, but when I responded no one was there. An hour after Sherry had left, I was visited by the police. They were sympathetic but told me I had to take down the signs and images or they would cite me for disturbing the peace and public immorality. I took them down. They had done exactly what I had requested. My wife noticed them, and the look on her face before I turned away from her told me that her life had begun to slide downward. That night I drank roughly a fifth of Maker's Mark and passed out in an alcoholic haze. I awoke Friday morning with a world-class hangover, but I still felt empowered. Yes, I felt unhappy and lonely, but I knew I had the strength to suppress my rage and loathing long enough to WK my revenge on my unfaithful wife and her lover. Around noon I lifted the front window curtains and discovered that the rug, kitchen table and bed were vanished. The mattress and insect-stained sheets were the only things left. I'd take those away or burn them later. I thought the rest of the morning was unremarkable, but by 3:00 p.m. all hell had broken loose. I was confident that Greg Adams' wife would have gotten the letter in photos that morning, and my lawyer had called to notify me. Sherry, Greg Adams and their partners had all been served at work. Sherry screamed and fell to the floor, sobbing, while Greg Adams walked around the office calling me names and threatening to kill me, despite the fact that he claimed to have been present when they were served. However, his associates shut themselves behind closed doors for 15 minutes before returning to offer Sherry her final check and inform her that her services were no longer necessary. They also gave Greg a check for his half of the partnership when he assured them he had no intention of selling to them. They cited a portion of their corporate bylaws dealing with morality and sexual fraternization among employees. The provision explicitly granted them the authority and right to end any relationships with him and his mistress. At the same moment, the front desk receptionist informed him that his wife was on the phone requesting to speak with him. She had received the letter and images I had provided, and she wanted to warn him not to bother coming home and to inform her that she would be filing for divorce the next day. I later discovered from the husband of one of the agency's female employees that after Adams was escorted out, everyone turned their backs on my soon-to-be ex-wife. She laid on the floor for perhaps 30 minutes weeping and wailing. She appeared to have gathered enough courage to leave the premises at some time, but no one knew where she went. The next day I received a call from Sherry. She sounded terrible. She wanted to know where the kids were and if they knew. I assured her that they were secure at my mother's apartment, that they were unaware of the nasty details and would not hear them from me. She thanked me for that and asked if she might come by to get some of her belongings. Of course I said she could. All she had to do was tell me when, and I'd go for a few hours while she acquired what she required. She asked if I could remain and talk to her, and I told her I didn't have anything to say, causing her to cry again. "You know, I apologize." She said, "You must know how sorry I am, Jack, and I never wanted to hurt you." I could not help myself. I genuinely began laughing. "Sherry, how the hell could you tell me you were sorry and you never intended to hurt me? What did you expect I would do when I found out? Congratulations to both of you. I didn't want you to find out I love you, Jack. I've never loved anyone besides you. I don't think you truly believe that, Sherry. How could you? after telling your sweetheart that he made you feel better than I ever could, how he was the only one who could complete you, how every time I made love to you, all you could think about was the one you never had inside you. Jack, I never said such things. How could you believe I would ever say such things to him? Because I have recordings of you uttering those words to him, Sherry. Every syllable. I told him that you didn't have to let me have sex with you every now and then to make me happy. I got it. Everything, Sherry, every phrase, every disgrace you attempted to impose on my head, every demeaning thing you could ever say about a man you spoke to your lover, about me, your husband. I have nothing to say to you, Sherry, and nothing you can say to me will change how I feel about you. I love you, Jack. You have to think I have always loved you, only you. I'm not sure what made me say those words to Greg. You have to believe it. I did not mean any of it. If you didn't mean anything, why did you do it? I do not know, Jack. It just looked dirty and I felt like I should go nasty with Greg. That was it for Greg, fun and nasty sex. You are a really ill puppy, Sherry. I am amazed. It took me so long to notice it. Shame on me for being so blind and foolish. I don't love him, Jack. I love you. Please, Jack, if you can find it in your heart to give me the opportunity to make things right, I will give you everything. I was incredibly stupid. I only belong to you, only you, Jack. You must believe that I made a mistake, but that can't be the end for us. Let me show you I can come to you right now. Thank you, Jack. Please do not abandon me. Sorry, Sherry, I do not love you and I do not have to leave. You left me the things you did with him for almost 6 months. You spoke demeaning and humiliating things about me, proving that you do not love me. You cannot love someone and hoping for that type of suffering, harm and disgrace. Sherry, I believe you are disgusting, a malevolent and repulsive woman, and I can't wait to get you out of my life. Do you honestly believe I want anything to do with your ass after you handed it to him and promised that it would be his only possession forever? I wouldn't touch your skanky body if you were the last woman on the planet. The children are the only reason I will ever have anything to do with you. Remember them, Shelby and Brian, the children we created while still a family. Do you want them too? I'd like to spare them as much pain as possible, but I do not want to spare you anything. In fact, I want you to feel the misery you've inflicted on me. You and your lover, Greg, deserve it. I want you to feel it. Why did you inform his wife, Jack? That was not fair, unfair. Are you totally delusional? Sherry. You treated me and her children unfairly. Why in the heck do you think I told her? Number 1. He destroyed my family by having sex with my wife repeatedly. Number 2, he took ownership of the one body on this planet that I believed was mine. To have an old animator tell him how wonderful he was and how terrible I was. In number 3, his wife needed to understand what a sad failure of a human being she was married to. What she does with that information is entirely up to her. They have children, Jack. So do I want to keep Shia and my 2 children safe. I feel awful for his children too. However, it is not because of me that kids may face a future without their father. It is his fault. It was also your fault, Sherry. I refuse to accept any of the guilt here. I do not want a divorce, Jack. I will fight for our marriage. There's nothing to fight over. I'd rather die than be bound to you for the rest of my life. Jack, I know you still love me. You have to believe it. You can't just turn it off for one like this. My God, you were delusional, totally out of your head. Have you read the divorce petition you were issued with? No, why should I? If you simply listen to reason, I'll make it up to you. There will be no divorce. If you can't do it for me, please do it for Shelby and Ryan. They need both a mother and a father, Jack. They'll always have a mother and father. We won't get married or live in the same house. If you cared to read the petition, you would have noticed that as long as you agreed to joint custody of our children, you can stay in the house and have half of our worldly possessions. What is not included in the petition? But I'm telling you right now that if you don't sign the petition and agree to the more than favorable terms, I'm offering you I'll show the videos of you and your dumb lover to everyone you've ever known, including your parents, sister, her children and anyone else I can think of. You would not do it. Jack, you can't really dislike me. Oh Sherry, that's where you're mistaken. I can and will. There's nothing on earth that can stop me. If you fight me, your life will be ruined forever. And yeah, Sherry, I can detest you so much, but please, Jack, do not do this. Sign your divorce papers, Sherry, please, let me make it up to you, Jack, no sign the paperwork, Sherry, oh God, please sign these papers. We hung up on her. Sherry signed the paperwork and the divorce was finalized after 6 months. She lives in the same hall as Shelby and Ryan used to share. I reside in a condominium a few blocks away. We are in the same school district, so the kids' schedules were little disrupted, but both of them felt the agony of the divorce. Shelby told me that their mother realized she had made a big mistake in her marriage and couldn't fix it, but we both assured the kids that we would always be there for them. I'm not sure what Sherry told her parents and sister about breakup, but because they all still talk to me, I assumed she didn't tell them I was to blame. My mother saw it as something Sherry and I couldn't get past. I finally got a chance to collect the tape recorder from Sherry's car and the voice track was remarkable. She contacted Greg on her way home and thanked him again for a beautiful time, but she told him she worried I might be getting suspicious and advised they slow things down for a couple of weeks until she was sure the coast was clear. Then, when she arrived to the house, she became perplexed, wondering what everyone was doing standing in the street, staring into our yard. Then, when she saw the placards and images and knew what I had done, her screaming nearly broke through. She took the recorder and drove away. She sobbed insane. What have you done, Jack? What did you do then? I believe reality hit her like a bucket of frigid water, causing her story to change. Oh God, what have I done now? God, please. What have I done? Please, God, make everything go away. She managed to contact her sweetheart, and when he responded, she shouted. He is aware of Greg and our situation. Jack knows everything. Then she sobbed for a long time. It's been nearly a year since the fires of hell swept over all of us. I'm gently putting the parts back together. I still don't date and probably won't for a time. The notion of repeating what I recently went through makes me wary of entering another significant relationship. Shelby told me that her mother had gone on a date once but returned home crying, and as far as she knew, I had not dated. Since Sherry obtained a work as a receptionist at a retirement village and has given up real estate for the time being. I've never found out if she keeps in touch with Greg Allen, and I don't care. Greg Allen and his wife are divorced and he has been unable to find work. You see, even though I didn't release a video of their sex encounters to anyone, she knew I was not his type of Greg. Many firms appear to be concerned about hiring someone with a history of wooing married women and dissolving marriages. Of course, I first removed Sherry's face from the movies, but I left all of the audio intact. I recently learned that Greg's ex-wife is dating a decent gentleman, a police officer, and they appear to be growing serious. Good for her. And speaking of Greg's former employer, to avoid any negative press, they made me a significant offer to keep me from suing them. I accepted, and as far as I'm concerned, everything is behind me. For the time being, my primary concern is my children's future. Perhaps one day my future will be meaningful to me. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.